So the first thing I want to say is, as many of you can probably guess, of all the big slap bass players out there, the person whose technique I'm most familiar with, I would say, is Claypool's. So I'm not as familiar with Flea's slap bass technique. I mean, I know he, plays like this way with his hand rather than this way, and I'm not really familiar with Wooten's slap bass technique either. I know he incorporates a lot of double thumbing in his technique, but yeah, so that's what I'm going to be speaking from in this video is, Claypool's technique. So there's a lot of slap bass tutorials here on YouTube, and a lot of them go over kind of the same things. They go over the basics, like it's like a rotational movement in your hand. They say like turning a doorknob when you're slapping. It's, striking the strings with the side of your thumb, the bony part of your thumb. You're not moving your thumb or your fingers, you're moving your arm. Left hand muting so that your notes, you can kill them, they don't like ring out. And all those things are important. Don't get me wrong, all those things are very important in getting started with slap bass, but in all the tutorials I've seen, there seems to be a concept that's missing. It's a concept that I think is pretty important to understand, and it's a concept that I think helped me go from a beginner to an intermediate slap bass player. And I mean, I'm just speaking from my experience, you know what I mean? So if this doesn't help you out, sorry about that. And that concept is, the double slap is not the same thing as two single slaps. So I'll say that again. The double slap is not the same thing as two single slaps. So let's say, for example, that you are learning to play Tommy the Cat. So obviously, you're not just going to instantly have it. You have to try to break it down and understand what's going on with the riff, So you may be thinking this. So you may be thinking, well, okay, so I have a pop, and then slap, and then a pop, slap, slap, pop, slap, slap, pop. So if I just take all that and then just try to play it faster and faster, eventually I'll have it. Eventually I'll have Tommy the Cat down. No, not exactly. It doesn't quite work like that. Now, to be fair, this riff in particular, Tommy the Cat, has this slap slap pop motion in it, and it's similar, but it's a bit different from the double slap, because when you introduce that pop in there, it just gives it a different kind of feel. But just ignore that. Ignore that in this video. We're not going to be focusing on pops at all, just slapping. I only mentioned Tommy the Cat because that is one of those, for beginning slap bass players, like that is the Primus song they want to learn how to play, But for this video, I think a better and simpler example to focus on is the intro of Pudding Time. So in an attempt to show what I'm talking about here, I'm going to play the Pudding Time intro first with two single slaps, and then again, but using the double slap. So, I'm not sure how well I showed the difference between those two. Hopefully I did, but for now let's talk about it. So first thing I want to say is, again, I think this is important. I think this is critical. If you want to get better at slap bass, in particular Claypool's kind of style of slap bass, my advice would be to focus on the double slap. And it sounds simple. It sounds like almost too simple, but if you can master this, if you can master the double slap, it'll open doors for you. Like I'm being serious. So if you can get that down, then the triple slap becomes much easier. And just like fancier stuff in general, like, you know, just a little bit of the awakening here. That kind of stuff becomes much, much easier if you have the double slap under your belt. So one way I've seen slap bass taught before is like you're almost like flicking with your forearm and your wrist here. So in that you have like down and then up, right? So like down and then up. It's a flick there. So in the double slap, don't think of it as like down, up, down, up. Think of it as like down and then down again. So in the double slap, like the first slap, obviously it's going to bounce off the strings a bit, right? And it would have to, because if you left your thumb there, then it would just kill the note. But that's it. You're just letting it bounce off and no more. You're not coming out with it at all. You're not raising it. And then the second slap here is working off the momentum of the first one. So these are not two like isolated independent slaps, right? So like the second one is dependent off of the first one. And unlike the first slap, the second one isn't going to start like out here. So when you're watching Les play, notice that his right hand is always pretty close to the strings. It's always pretty close there. He never brings it out very far in his slap technique. Most of the time, like occasionally, every once in a blue moon, he'll kind of get kind of exaggerated and showy with it, you know, like Shake Hands with Beef, where it's like. But yeah, the vast majority of the time he doesn't play like that. So when you're playing slap bass, as fun as it may be to get your arm way out there, to play in kind of a, somewhat showy, exaggerated way, kind of like the Louis Johnson style of playing. As fun as that is, it uses up motion and it uses up energy. It's just simply more economic if you keep your hand close to the strings here. So why is that relevant? Well, it's because when Les is slapping and using the double slap, in between the two strikes of the thumb on the string, in between there, his thumb is still pretty close to the strings. It's not touching again, because then you'd kill the note, but it's still very close to the strings there. So because this camera looking at me and the instrument is not a very good angle to illustrate this, so let's say my left hand here is the string. So in the double slap, in between the two strikes of the thumb on the string, in between there, my thumb is still pretty close to the string, right? So it's not like, right there like a millimeter away, but it's still pretty close. Definitely closer than it would be with two individual slaps, right? And again, after the first strike, after the first slap here, my thumb bounces off the string, but no more. I'm not pulling away at all. So with the motions going on here in the double slap, there's definitely a looseness to it. There's definitely a looseness to Les' style of slap bass. So with this sense of looseness, I would not say that it's something you have to kind of work at and like grind at until you get it. Okay, so building speed, for example. So building speed is one of those things. Building speed, doing that sort of thing. That is something that you have to like take slow and then work at and grind at, so to speak, until you ingrain that into your muscle memory, right? The double slap isn't quite like that. Instead, I would say that this looseness is it's like a feeling that you have to discover. and you probably won't discover it right away. Like it took me a while to discover for sure. And it's sort of like something it's there, like it's in there, and it's possible to access it, but it's just hard to discover. And I think that may be because you never you never really have to use your arm in that way in day-to-day life, if that makes sense. So speaking of day-to-day life, if your bass isn't on you, you could practice this on your leg, right? So to demonstrate here, just doing the double slap on my leg there. And I think I mentioned this in another video, in the mud tutorial, I think. I think it's good to practice on your leg. I think that can be handy, and I haven't really heard anyone else kind of talk about this, but yeah, I think it's good. And obviously, you know, the surface of your pants is different from a string, so you kind of lack the precision of slapping a specific string, but you can still practice the motions, and you can do that for Claypool's technique in general. You know, you can pop with that by kind of swiping up here on the side. You can do strumming. You know, so if I was doing, I don't know, like American Life, like, right? Maybe even a little bit of fingerstyle to do John the Fisherman here. So if you're looking to practice this technique, the double slap, on a riff that is, you know, a little more advanced than the Pudding Time intro, there's one riff, Ding Dang, by Les Claypool's Frog Brigade, that the main riff just uses the double slap, and that goes like this. And there's fills on there too, like, but just, you know, just ignore those and focus on the main riff if you want to practice this on a Claypool riff.